Okay, I had to take a little bit of an intermission because I did not expect this video to become what it has become. I really sat down thinking I was going to talk about sobriety and that journey, and then it turned into like my whole fucking life story. Because as I was talking, I could feel it kind of morphing into how I've ended up on my spiritual path and that journey. And now I'm kind of feeling like this is probably the time to talk about this and get into this, since I'm already here, and these are kind of things I've been wanting to share and tell the story of for a while. And it actually, like, now that I'm looking back, it like kind of makes a lot of sense with some of the synchronicity that's been happening this week and some of the messages coming in that I didn't fully understand, and now I'm like, well, this checks out, this makes sense, you know. We're also in Mercury retrograde, which is, you know, can be a time for like revision and like maybe looking at the past a little bit. And so yeah, this is all like perfectly timed actually. So I think I'm just gonna kind of continue on with like the spiritual journey kind of stuff, and make this into 2 parts, and then I can like get it out of me, because honestly there's some stories in here that I've like been meaning to tell for some time, but like didn't really know like when the right time was. And I'm sorry if I get like kind of jumbled and all over the place, because it is like a little bit complex, especially because at the time I didn't always know what was happening. It wasn't until things started to click together that I was like, oh, that's what that was. And so it makes it really difficult to like retell the story when it's not like I was keeping notes on everything. Now I do. Like when I experience synchronicity, I've started keeping notes. But in telling, you know, mainly my partner, but at the time I didn't know what the fuck I was experiencing, and so it was like, yeah, I didn't exactly keep the best records of it. Okay, so we left off with that relationship ending. I am feeling a little bit like ungrounded, so like hold on, let me bring it back in. Let's reel it back in. This is why I haven't told this story also, what I'm about to get into, because it does kind of, I feel like it does kind of lift me out of my body a little bit, but I think it's an important story to tell, and I want to be here for it. So yeah, let's move the energy back down into my body, right? Let's get a little bit centered here. Okay, so like I said, the synchronicity and the energy coming in at that time was incredibly intense. And I'm not going to explain. I feel like this conversation that I'm about to have isn't necessarily maybe for people that okay, sorry, I was hearing noises outside, and it was kind of weird, but it was just like a delivery. But I decided, you know what, I think we're gonna be here for a second, so like let me just like get comfortable. Like my feet were kind of cold, and yeah, let's just get settled in here. There's no need to sit here and like be uncomfortable for a length of time when I don't need to be. I didn't realize what this was gonna be. Oh, what I was saying was, I want to reframe what I was saying, in that like this story is for anybody anywhere on their journey, but I don't think I'm gonna go into like explaining what every little thing is. If you don't know what synchronicity is, like go look it up. It's meaningful coincidence, but yeah. So I went to school. I went to school for naturopathic medicine, and like I said, the all of that was so loud for a couple months. You know, it's always summertime. I'm just realizing this shit always hits for me in the summertime. So I had this crazy ass fucking summer, and then I started school, and it got quiet. You know, I broke open. I had all of these intuitions about things, these visions about things. This is when what felt like my purpose was first planted here. I got like a few readings from people. This is when I first started working with like energy workers, and they were kind of confirming things that I was having dreams about, and that I think that, and visions about, and things that I was starting to kind of know for myself at that time. I'm trying to figure out, I don't know like if I should share like all the fucking details, but I kind of feel like those specifics are for the people that they're for, and not necessarily for the right now moment of sharing this with everybody. But the right people either already know or will know when they come in what we're doing here. So yeah, this is when the seeds were starting to be planted for what I am to do here, right? And I thought it was gonna happen like right away, and that happens every time this happens. But it didn't, you know. I went to school. And I feel like everything got kind of quiet, and I think that I was just supposed to focus on school. That's what that was for. It's like we kind of broke you open a little bit. We gave you the information. We gave you your faith back. I think that also my awakening, especially knowing where I'm at now, I think that it had to happen in stages, because if I would have broke open into the where I'm at now, that probably would have led to psychosis. So I think that it kind of had to happen in stages, like an unfolding, rather than like let's completely fucking crack you open and have you go crazy, right? So it was like I was getting tastes of the intuition and the synchronicity and the ways in which reality is a reflection of us, a mirror of us. It's moldable, it's bendable, it responds to us, it's talking to us, it's a little bit more wavy than I think some of us would like to believe or are aware of. But yeah, I went to school, and then I think I'm going to talk about like some relationship stuff, even though I'm not totally sure like exactly like why some of this stuff is relevant, but for some reason I feel like they're like, bitch, do tell spill the motherfucking tea. So I'm like, okay, I don't know who's watching this. Like, we're past an hour into the story at this point. I mean, we're only 5 minutes into this video, but I think you should go back and watch the first one to really get the context of where we're at. And if you've made it this far, then it's like you're really invested, right? So why not just get real close and personal and just share all the shit, right? So yeah, I was kind of having like little synchronicity moments. It was just sprinkled throughout. It was just enough to kind of like see the like little winks from the universe, but nothing that was really like groundbreaking, right? And so I was living here in Vancouver, but I eventually ended up going back to Bend. I moved back to Bend, continued school there, and then this synchronicity started to pick up again for me there. Ooh, feeling that wound. Okay, so this is when Tinder kind of like first became a thing. And I had been single for a very long time at this point. Like, I was single for like 5 years of just doing my own thing. I'd kind of meet somebody and maybe it'd be a thing for like a second, and then it wouldn't go anywhere. I just like wasn't really finding anybody that I was like clicking with. It just wasn't happening. And there was a lot of personal development that happened in this time, and at the time I was just like so upset. I just felt like there was something wrong with me, or I was just unlovable, or like why can't I like find anybody? Like, I thought I was the fucking problem. But looking back on it, I'm actually very grateful for this time period, because I think that it really made me who I am. It really allowed me to develop myself and find myself, and there was just a lot. There was a lot of growth in that period, and I think everybody should take a period of time to like be single. And like I was celibate for like 2 years. It just wasn't clicking. So it's like I'm not gonna go sleep with anybody if it's not right, so yeah, I was just doing my own thing. And Tinder kind of came around for a while, and I was reluctant to try it, but then I like it kept coming up. People kept bringing it up to me. It kept being like a thing that was being put in my awareness just over and over. It was just like relentless, you know. And this is kind of how synchronicity works. It's like maybe the first few times something comes up, you don't really pay attention to it, but then it's like that third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever time, it's like you start to be like, what's going on here? Like, why am I being pushed to do this, you know? So eventually I got on it. And what's interesting is I met somebody from this, but I had already met him. We had a class together. And this is really interesting because I feel like I thought about saying this when I was telling the story before, but I don't know. I didn't because it just felt kind of personal and like kind of embarrassing to admit that I had these feelings when like I don't know what this other person like felt, right? So in that previous relationship that I talked about, I had feelings, you know. There was things that were weird, you know, like it seemed like whenever we kind of found ourselves like somewhat in the same place, it was like our eyes would just kind of like, we found each other like every time. And it was like, I felt something in my body when that happened. It was like this magnetizing of like there was one time that I was like in a car, like I think it was for the funeral of my boyfriend, and he was walking into the church, and it was like there was a lot of people, and there was like we were driving, you know, trying to find parking, and it was like boom, like locked in, you know. And stuff like that would happen for me pretty regularly with him. And when I was stuck with him for those few days, I had a moment where like we were in the garage, and this song came on, and he like looked at me, and I don't know if he said something or what, but I felt this like whoosh, this like shot through my fucking brain. Like, I don't know if this was like a third eye opening kind of a thing, but it was really fucking intense, and I had to sit there and pretend like I was normal. Because I do that, even though it's very clear to everyone that I'm very much not normal. I don't know why I even try anymore. But anyways, so then what happened with this other guy was kind of a similar feeling. I have these moments with these people that end up being like significant like lovers or partners in my life. I get this very visceral physical reaction. And so this was a complete stranger at this time, and we had a class together, and I was already in the desk, and he came up, and I think maybe he asked me if the seat in front of me was taken or something. It was something very casual like that. And he was not like someone that I would normally find myself attracted to either, which is what's so funny. And even in that moment, it wasn't quite like an attraction, I would call it. But he looked at me and asked me this question, and all I felt was this like like I felt like I had just been like not even like shot through the heart, but like literally like impaled. Like, it was actually quite painful. It like wasn't a great feeling. Like, this other one was almost like a coming online kind of feeling. It wasn't like a bad feeling. I wouldn't call it a good feeling either. It was just intense. It was like electrical. Whereas this one literally felt like I had been impaled with something like right through my fucking heart. And he sat down, and I was just like, wow, that was fucking weird, you know, and had to go about my life, you know, because this is a complete stranger. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know. I didn't know what to do, right? So I just continued on with my life. And then I ended up on Tinder, and he was on there. And again, men pick out like the worst fucking pictures for themselves on Tinder. It's wild. So, if I had not met him in person already, I 100% would have swiped left on him. And it's not that he was like unattractive, but his pictures were not doing him any justice. But he came up on my Tinder, and I was like, oh, that's that guy that I have in that class. And so I swiped right on him, and I think we talked briefly or whatever. And then the next time he saw me in that class, he asked for my phone number. And I gave it to him, and we started talking. And I remember the first time he came to my house. This relationship is hard for me to get into because I still feel pretty wounded from it, honestly. So I'm going to talk about it, and I'm just noticing that there's definitely some points of wounding that I like to pretend aren't there, and like to just, because I don't dwell on these things. Like, sometimes it feels like there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I just have to keep going, keep living or whatever. And I remember the first time he came to my house, he was talking about all sorts of stuff that was very synchronistic to me. Like, I remember him talking about like the singularity, and like he was like super like he was just super nerdy. He was really into science. He was very smart. What's funny is I feel like we put on a movie, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like it was like the newer, is it The Wizard of Oz, or the one with Mila Kunis in it? Hold on, this is gonna bug me. Yes, Oz the Great and Powerful. I'm pretty sure that's what was on, which also would be like very synchronistic with some of the shit that's going on right now. The full circle moment that's happening right now is wild. Because you know that's all about like following the path, right? Yeah, and I don't remember all the things we talked about, but we just sat. I don't think we even watched the fucking movie. We just sat on the couch and we just talked and talked and talked and talked for hours. And I just lit up inside because the things that he was saying were very synchronistic, and so it made me feel like, oh my God, this is like, there's something happening here, right? And he left, you know, and I don't remember exactly, but I do remember there were like multiple like weird moments. And at first, like month or two together was amazing. We hiked, and we went to like Blue Pool, if anybody knows what that is, and that was like a whole experience, and like it was really good. And then the whole truth of the matter of everything that was going on in his life kind of came crashing down. I knew that he had a kid, and I knew that he had been married, but he was separated from his wife, and he was living in his own place. You know, it really seemed from my perspective at the time, it really seemed like they were like fully separated, and he was like moving on, and like, I mean, he was on dating apps, which he clearly should not have been. And now looking back at it, I'm like, I think I knew even that it had only been fucking 2 months since they had separated, and I'm just like, girl, what were you doing? Like, I feel like that should have been a red flag immediately. But like I said, we clicked so well, like so quickly, that it was like I kind of just, and like I said, he was already living somewhere else. Like, their lives seemed really separate from at least what I was being exposed to, and so I think I just kind of accepted that as that's enough time, right? Absolutely fucking not. And his son was only 2, you know. It's like, don't judge me, okay? Like, the red flags were everywhere. They were bright red too. But I overlooked them because I was so curious about this path that I was being led on. And like I said, there was so much synchronicity. Here's the thing about me. When I feel like God is leading me somewhere or telling me to do something, even if it seems illogical, I go. I go. I follow it. And so even if there's certain things that don't seem like they make sense, if the synchronicity is there, if the intuitive pull is there, I will follow it. However, this is the point at which I should have gotten out, and I very much see that now. It was like, I don't know. Anyways, we'll get into that later. So, yeah, we had a tower moment, you know, and I came to find out that he was still very much entangled up with his ex-wife, and like he was still spending a lot of time over there because they had a fucking 2-year-old, right? And she needs help. And yeah, I don't remember how all of this happened. I just remember that it just became very apparent that he was like still juggling all of this stuff and still in a lot of inner turmoil. And you know, I think that he was still fighting to have the connection though too, because I remember that there was a point at which we like maybe we had a period of not talking for a second. Like, it wasn't long though, you know. And then I remember meeting up with him at like a restaurant, and him apologizing and basically just saying all the right things, you know, that made me want to like, okay, well, I'll you know, continue to see where this goes. But I think that looking back at this, I should have been like, you know what, why don't you like take some time and Like, get your shit in order, you know, get your divorce, figure out what your guys's, you know, plan is moving forward, and then, like, you know, give me a call. That's what I should have done. That's what I should have done, is like, let's revisit this later. But no, I didn't do that. I continued forward when it was pretty clear at that point that I shouldn't. And that relationship was just fucking insane. Fucking insane. It was so hot and cold. It was so in high highs and low lows. He was a Gemini, which I don't know if you know this, but Geminis are just like too fucking, you can't convince me otherwise, because they're all like this. They're all fucking like this. It might look different sometimes. They're all two people in one fucking body. And there is such a clear distinction between one version and the other. And it was like this light switch would go on with him, and he was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it was like this switch would go off, and he suddenly was not reachable anymore. And when things were good, they were so fucking good. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard with somebody in my life. Like, we had so much fun together. And but when that switch went off and he became the other version of himself, it was just, he was so fucking mean. He couldn't hear me. He wouldn't listen. He would jab at me. Like, not physically, sorry, like say things that were meant to be a jab at me, you know, purposely to lash out and hurt me, you know. And it was a very emotionally and mentally abusive relationship that I should have gotten out of long before I did. I ended up, I think the combination of how intense things were at the beginning and how heavy the synchronicity was, like, I wanted this so badly. And then I had been single, like I said, I'd been single and like celibate for such a long fucking time that I think I just so badly wanted this to be it, that I clung to it. And like I said, when things were really good, they were like really fucking good. And so it's like, it's that cycle of abuse, you know, of like when things would get bad, it's like I just would want it to go back to the good. And then once it was good, I'd feel like, oh, okay, like it's gonna get better. But it always went back to this other thing, right? And I ended up moving with him to Eugene to go to school. I had finished up my associate's degree, and we were gonna go to, or I was about to finish it. I had like two terms left that I could do online, and he had finished, and so we were gonna go to why do I want to say U of O? I don't think it's U of O. Why am I blanking on this? One of them's OSU and one of them's U of O. Whichever one is in fucking Eugene is the one that we were going to. And he transferred over there, and then I just was gonna finish up the last 2 terms online and then go. So we moved away, which at the time I thought would fix everything. So his wife, because she was still his wife, was horrible. She was horrible. Like, it was like she didn't want him, but she didn't want me to have him either. And I think she kept him in this like torturous kind of loop as well. I think it was so fresh for him. I think that he was, what happened really when I look back at it is that I think that he really was stuck in a place of like, I want my family to be together, you know, but this isn't happening. And so I'm going to try and move on. But he was like stuck between this thing of like, you know, everybody wants their family to be together, you know. It's like once you have a kid and like you had a future in mind, I get it, you know, he was married. This is what he thought his life was going to be. And so I think that he was constantly torn between the possibility of having his family back together and, you know, seeing that maybe wasn't going to happen. And so trying to also move on from that. And so I don't think he was evil, you know, like I think that we both should have been more responsible and had better boundaries and known better what was going to be best for ourselves and each other, and we shouldn't have continued down the road. But, you know, like I said, I think that we clicked so intensely so quickly that it was kind of hard to let go of. And she was constantly like in his ear about me, like trying to point out every little thing about me that was negative, or to paint me in the most negative light possible. And I'm starting to realize where this might be going, and I'm just not sure if I'm ready to go there. So I'm just gonna keep telling the story, and we'll see how this unfolds. And I'll probably just have to talk to my partner about whether it's okay that I share this or not. But yeah. So yeah, she would try and like paint me in a horrible light, and then she would kind of toy with him, you know. I think that it's like she still kind of needed his assistance with the kid and with her bills, and it's like she still kind of needed him on her hook a little bit. And like I said, it was like she didn't want him, but she didn't want me to have him, and so she would kind of toy with him. It was like they would have these like flirtatious messages with each other, but then she would like throw him back in, or like it was this constant like push and pull. I think she would like give him hope that maybe something could happen, but then be like, nope, that's never gonna happen. And like she was super manipulative. It was super gross. Like I could see right through her from the fucking beginning, but he was still on her hook, you know. She still had his claws in him for sure. And it was so frustrating for me to watch, because I could see this and how this was playing out, and I could see what she was doing. I clocked her from the start, and I would try and explain to him what was happening, and he just couldn't see it. He just wanted his family back, you know. So yeah, there was a lot of trauma, there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of trying to get him to see the situation for what it was, and it was just really hard for me. And I remember having a moment of like, because normally for me, like when things are not good for me, they get taken from me. Like they don't, it's like I'm not, that door is closed. That path is like dead end. Like you can't go any further on this thing. And so I remember having multiple moments of like, especially because God had like revealed itself to me previously. I remember having moments of just like looking up at the sky, like I can't believe they're letting me like continue on this path. Like, and I think that for some reason it was like that was also still kind of like this almost permission to like, I almost wanted to push it to see how far I could get, because it was like, this isn't how this normally goes. Like I said, like normally when something's not good for me, it's like I'm forced on a different path. And so I couldn't believe that I could see how bad this was for me. I could see how much I was hurting, how much pain I was in. And I was like, why are they letting me like still do this, you know? But then there started to be synchronicities coming in of like, be prepared, we're moving on, like be prepared. And I was having dreams, and I could tell something. I could see the writing on the wall at this point of like, this is going down. This is going down in flames. And we would break up. We broke up long before we actually permanently parted ways. And you know, I was constantly finding reasons to leave. He was constantly getting caught in lies. And like, this is kind of also when I realized how like, or started to realize like how it's interesting, because I don't believe God to be like this, like malicious, God's gonna get you, like kind of a thing. But maybe it's an energy thing. I don't know. I remember there would always, in moments of like when he would do something that would hurt me, it was almost like he would get like immediate punishment for it. Like there was one time that his bike got stolen, and then there was another time where his MacBook got stolen, like literally right off his coffee table. Like someone came into the apartment and took it right off the coffee table. There was another time he had bought a new car, and someone crashed into him like right after buying it. And all of these always happened after like big moments of like him hurting me. And I remember at the time thinking, that is so weird. It's just like instant fucking karma that he's getting. And so it started, that was the first signs of how much like spirit really like fucking had my back. And yeah, we clung to each other for quite some time after we had officially broken up. And I remember his wife would just torment the fuck out of me. It was like every time she would realize that I was in town, she would send me some messages trying to give me information that would hurt me, that would make me get away from him. And yeah, she was constantly like weaseling her way, working her way into the middle of our relationship and trying to tear us apart. She really like made it her mission. And what's really sad is that like I went into this really thinking that like we could all get along, and like be a team, but that would have been completely impossible with where she was at. And it was very much like, it was harassment. Like, looking back on it, it was fucking harassment. I would block her and she'd make new profiles, and like, it was it was such a fucking shit show. I'm almost embarrassed to tell this. Like, I can't believe I stayed in this shit. And there's just a lot of details that, like, I'm just trying to, like, get the gist of it here. And I know I'm still making it long, but it got so bad that I couldn't even focus on, like, my school stuff. Like, I was trying, and I was in chemistry, which has always been, like, my hardest subject, and it was his easiest fucking subject. And he would try and help me, but I was just, like, I was so distraught. I was in such distress that I couldn't even focus on anything else besides the constant up and downs of my relationship. And I was getting to the point where I was, like, gonna fail this class. Mind you, I was like a 4.0 student, you know. I had done really well up until this point, but I was, once again, just like with the drugs, it was like, you know, if you would look, it's my school record is so interesting, because it's like, if you look at it, it's just like perfection, and then you can see that there's just this point where I just drop off a fucking cliff, and my mental health plummets, and then I can't do anything anymore. And I was really struggling to hold it together. And the last time I went to go see, so I moved to Gresham, Oregon, when we broke up, and continued school over here at PSU. And I would go back and see him every once in a while, because, like I said, even after we broke up, we were still kind of, like, holding on. And the last time I went to go see him, I posted something, like, I was, like, eating food. I posted, like, a picture of my food or something from one of the restaurants around there. And of course she was watching my shit, and so she messaged me, and she's like, oh, if you're seeing him, I have something to tell you, and basically told me that they had slept together. So after all of this shit, he ended up sleeping with her, and that was really the nail in the coffin for me. Even though we weren't technically together, we still kind of were, and also it just felt like a betrayal in general, because all of this fucking shitstorm that she had caused and been a part of, and yeah, so that was the end of that, and I left. And I got a letter not too long after that from him, basically, you know, apologizing for the way that he had treated me, and thanking me for the ways in which I had helped him, and how valuable I am, you know, which I get that in nearly every fucking relationship I'm ever in. We always have this big fucking tower moment, and then I help them with whatever I help them with, and they help me in their own fucked up way also. But yeah, so okay, so what's interesting though is, while this because now we're getting into the weird stuff, I don't know why any of that was really relevant. I'm just kind of like telling this, well, actually I do. So in the midst of all of this chaos of this relationship ending, like I said, there was some weird dream stuff that happened, but I feel like I need to save that for, like, a throwback for the next thing coming up, right? My current partner had followed me on Instagram, and this is when I was still with this other person. Like, we weren't officially together, but, like, we were, okay? And I noticed him immediately, but I didn't, like, I was posting a lot of, like, spiritual shit at the time, and my following had kind of jumped up a little bit, and so it wasn't, like, a thing that I paid too much mind to, but it definitely, like, his picture stood out to me, and I remember that being a thing, and he would like a lot of my stuff, and, I think maybe he'd comment every once in a while on, like, a picture or something, and it was, I noticed him, you know, and it was, I had a little feeling, but it wasn't, I don't know, it was, I didn't know what it was at the time, and then he messaged me, in response to, like, something I had posted. He sent me a message and, like, actually tried to talk to me about something that I had shared. And, you know, at first I was like, normally I wouldn't respond to, like, a random guy on the internet messaging me, because random guys do that to women all the time. But I went to his profile and I saw that we had like a shit ton of mutual friends and people that like I actually like know and like I'm friends with and like have been friends with for a really long time. And so I'm like, who the fuck is this? You know? And so I responded to him and we started talking, and funny enough, we went to the same high school, although he is a couple years younger than me, and so I did not meet him back then. But clearly a lot of people that I knew him. And this was when a lot of weird other shit started to happen. This is the second phase of the spiritual awakening. So like I said, it was kind of like quiet for some time, but I could feel that it was time to move on. And I remember I had this moment at my grandparents' house, and this might seem kind of insignificant to some people, but it was a moment that hit me. And I was I think this was before I had figured out where I was going to stay, like a permanent place in where I ended up in Gresham. And I was at my grandparents' house just trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. And they had like a little trailer that was parked outside their house that I was staying in. And I had my dog, who I named Ruby. And I bought her a little red leash, and like, I got her when this breakup with this other person first happened, because I was horribly depressed and I just needed something to love me and to love, you know, and to sleep in my bed with me, because this was about 2 years with this other person that this went on. And I was sitting it was very dark. I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere, right? Like there's no street lights or shit like that. And I'm sitting on the steps of the trailer, and I was like smoking a bowl, and I had her leash around my wrist, and she's like out in the dark. Like all I can see is the leash like going into the darkness. I can't see what it's attached to. And I'm like trying to like smoke my bowl, and it starts like pulling on me. And I just see this red, basically it was a very thin leash too. It was like basically a red string around my wrist, just kind of like pulling, and I see it just going into the darkness. I can't see what it's attached to. And this message just hit me in my brain, like, you have got other people that you are tied to that it is time to go meet and be a part of each other's lives. Because there's this like red thread, if you look it up, it's like the invisible red string or whatever. And I actually now I have a tattoo of it, because it has become very meaningful to me. And it talks about, you know, we're all tied to each other, and like no matter how tangled or knotted up the thread gets, it never breaks. And so you know, eventually you will find each other, right? It's like nothing can stop these like fated meetings, you know. And it's not just like romantic stuff, it's everybody, it's your friends, it's your family, it's your children, it's, you know. And so I had this moment of like, okay, like I'm heartbroken and I'm leaving this situation, but there's something for me that's tugging at me, that's telling me it's time to go. And so I moved forward, and like I said, this guy started talking to me on Instagram, and we started having conversation, and it was very meaningful very fast. Like it was very easy. It was very easy. And the synchronicity started to come in again very heavy. Oh, he didn't live here. There we go. He didn't live here. He was in the military. He lived in California, and I was up here in Gresham. So it was long distance. And so we would just talk to each other. You know, we just had this like long distance relationship. It wasn't like an official thing. We were just talking, and we liked each other, and we had meaningful conversation, and we would talk on the phone. I think we talked like every day. Shit started to get weird in my life, and it was really hitting hard. And I don't remember how it started. I don't remember all the things. I just remember feeling like I was going fucking crazy, and it was coming in very intensely, and I like couldn't work. I was scared to go anywhere because I wasn't sure like when it was gonna hit, this like overwhelming energetic feeling of disorientation, or like the synchronicity would just come in like so hot and heavy, like the same thing, just like it. I don't know how to explain it. If you haven't experienced it, it's hard to explain, but if you've experienced it, you probably know what I'm talking about. And I remember that I spent like, again, this was during the summer, I spent almost that whole summer in the fucking shower. And I was like selling all my shit to be able to pay rent. Like I was like scraping by because I just felt like I couldn't function as a human. Like I was like, I can't go out there. Like I don't know when this shit's gonna hit. And it makes me feel like I'm gonna just fucking float away from my body and never come back. And like, it scared the shit out of me. And the shower was the only thing that made me feel okay. It was like the hot water running over me was like soothing, and I could just sit in there and just process. And at some point, I remember this 7-Eleven synchronicity started to come in. I was seeing 7-Eleven everywhere. And at the time, it was like, well, what is this? Why does this keep coming up? Like 7-Eleven's like, it's like a store. It's like a convenience store. Like, I don't know why this is special, you know, but it kept coming up over and over and over again. I remember even my roommate at the time, I told her about it, that it was happening. And then I think that same day we went to this thing. We were working for this guy, and we were all sitting around this table working. It was very much under the table side gig, okay, let's just say that. And we were sitting there around the table, and this song came on that said like 7-Eleven in it or something, and both of us like looked up from what we were doing and like locked eyes, and I was like, I fucking told you, like I told you, you know. So it kept coming up, and eventually I was like, maybe it's a date, like July 11th, like maybe that's what it is. And I told a couple people about it, but I felt stupid, you know. I was like, I swear to God, the 7-Eleven's gonna roll around and like nothing's gonna fucking happen. And I remember there was some weird shit that happened. This is kind of a little bit of a side tangent, but there was some weird shit that was happening at that house also. A lot of people, we were in a duplex that was it was a family friend's house, and we were staying in one side of it, but it had been their family home forever. Like people had been born there and died there, and like there was a lot of people that had died there. And they didn't tell me this when I moved in, and I never really felt like unsafe there. I remember there was like one moment like towards the end before I was about to leave that was kind of weird, that I felt a little bit of like darkness, but for the most part I came, and they did not tell me that weird shit happened there. They just let me move in. And I remember there was one night that I was sleeping, and I woke up to the sound of footsteps just like back and forth, like in my room, like next to my bed. Like I could just hear it. And I remember just like slowly waking up, and it was like the awareness was kind of coming online. It was like I could hear it, but I could hear it for a while before I really realized what was happening and that it was real. And then as I started to realize what I was actually hearing and that it was real, I like kind of had a moment of like getting scared, but then I had this kind of like vision of like all of the people that I have lost, like all of the people, like my family that has died, and like my boyfriend that had passed, and like my uncle, and like I could see, it was like angels like surrounding my bed. And my dog was like not freaking out either. She was just under the covers. And so I think that it was like I just rolled over and just went back to sleep, which sounds so weird because I feel like normally if that had happened, I would probably run for the hills. But it was like I was scared to look over. I remember that. I remember kind of being awake and like not wanting to look over. I could hear what was happening, but I was like, you know. And so I like had this vision, and I just rolled over and I went back to sleep. And then not too long after that, I believe it was on my birthday, my roommate came and was she'd come home from work, and she started telling me about how she was woken up in the middle of the night and in her room from footsteps at the end of her bed going back and forth. And she said she saw like a figure of a person. I did not see anything because I did not want to look. But she said she saw something, and she had not heard my story. I had not told her this. But when she told me that, I lost my shit, because I was like, what the fuck? Like, that happened to me. Like, I experienced the same thing. And so I thought it was like so interesting that without knowing, she had pretty much the exact same experience. So house was weird is my point. But like I said, I never felt like unsafe. It was scary because of the nature of it, of like, oh my God, what the fuck's happening? But there wasn't an energy of like, I'm not safe here, or it's a threat or like anything. So I didn't worry about leaving. And I love that place. It's still, I think, my favorite place I've ever lived. It was beautiful there. And I did a lot of soul searching there and healing there. Anyways, so there was a lot of synchronicity starting to come in, and I didn't know what it was. So because at the time I didn't know what was happening, I wasn't documenting things, and so this is going to sound kind of vague, and maybe some of you are going to think I'm making it up, but I promise you I'm not. I just remember the pieces that I got from these synchronicities, right? So I had the 7-Eleven thing, so I thought, okay, July 11th maybe. And then I started to get stuff about a car accident. It just seemed like everybody was talking to me about a car accident. It was constantly coming into my awareness, and I know that this is like a very common thing that happens, but it's like, this was to the point of like, what the fuck? Like, why is this? It was just like constant. And I was coming home from this like little side gig that I was doing, and I stopped at a convenience store, and I was waiting in line to buy whatever the fuck I was buying, and the person in front of me started talking to the cashier about a car accident, and I lost my shit, because it was just the final straw that like broke the camel's back. And I like called my friend, and I was like panicking, and I'm like, everyone keeps talking about a car accident, I just keep seeing stuff about cars, I feel like I'm gonna get in a car accident. Like, I was scared to drive home, you know. And she, you know, was telling me about you know, she started telling me about this effect. I can't remember what she called it, but you know, basically of like, you know, when you notice something, you keep noticing it or whatever, which is like, okay, valid, but like, it came up with such frequency that I had noticed it in the first place, that it had become significant. Okay, it wasn't like I was looking for this from the start. Maybe after that point I became hypersensitive to it, but there was a point at which it became weird in the first place that then caused me to notice whatever came after that. So I still felt very worried, but she kind of just reassured me that it's like, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. Like, just be careful, like wear your seatbelt. Like, I have to get home, right? I'm out in the middle of fucking nowhere, and like I have to go home. So I drove home, and I just had this thing about a car accident. I remember there was a few other things that had come up. At some point there was something about like a DJ. I don't remember where that piece came from. Yeah. So then in like probably I'd say the week or so leading up to July 11th, meanwhile all this weird shit's going on that I can't totally remember now, but I had a dream. That's what it was. I had a dream that I was in this house, and my boyfriend that had passed, mind you, this is years later. I was probably like 26 at this point. He had passed when I was 19. So this is many years later. And I was in this house that seemed like it was like his spirit family's house, is kind of what I gathered, like soul family kind of a place. It wasn't like his actual family, and it wasn't a house that I had ever seen before. And he had a room there. And I was there with my good friend who had also known him. And, I didn't see her, but she was like here the whole time next to me. I could feel it. And I went into his room, and I just kind of like started going through his stuff. Like, I was like looking for something or trying to figure something out. And then someone came in, and like I sat down with what was his soul family, and we had this conversation about like, I remember it was something about like moving on, or like it being okay to move on or something. And I woke up from it, and I called the friend that was in the dream with me that also knew him, and I was like, I told her about it. I was like, hey, I just like had this dream, and she was like, oh, that, you know, that's so weird. And she like went into this thing about like, I once had a dream that I knew everything, but I couldn't bring it back with me. you know, and it jogged my memory back to, if you remember how I said I was having dreams at the end of that last relationship, I had also had a dream like that, and I completely forgot about it until that moment. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I also had a dream like that when I was in that relationship. I had a dream that I think I talked about this in another video also, but I had a dream where I was meeting with what seemed like the council, like this spirit team of like beings, and everything is kind of like white, but not like the room was white, almost like it's like wiped, like from my memory, like it was erased from my memory. And so all I can see is just this fogginess and kind of like the shadowy silhouettes of these beings that were here. And I almost feel like I was like in a doorway. Like I remember I feeling like I was kind of like leaned up against a doorway or something. And I remember that I was given the opportunity to ask all of my questions and get all of my answers. And I didn't say this in the other story, but I look back on that time and I feel like I recognized it at that time too. It was like this feeling of like rewriting contracts or signing contracts, or like there was a meeting here for a reason. And we, like I said, I got to ask all my questions and get all my answers, and I don't remember what I asked. I don't remember what they told me. I don't remember a whole lot of anything other than the feeling of how it felt to have the answers. I remember how I felt when I had the answers, and I felt so at peace. Like that was just the most peaceful I have ever felt in my life. Like everything was okay. It all made sense, and it was safe, and it was, yeah. So I'm like telling her about all this, and we get off the phone, and then throughout the week there's like more stuff that starts coming up. I find this guy, he's on YouTube. I don't know if any of you know who he is. Shaman Oaks. Sorry, weird, having another synchronistic moment. Okay, anyways, he talks about near-death experiences, and so I kind of went down this rabbit hole of near-death experiences. And then this guy, a different guy, his story came up where he was talking about how he almost died, and that he like met God, and he got to ask all his questions and get all of his answers, but he couldn't bring it back with him. And so it's like this theme throughout the week, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And so July 11th is coming up, right? And what ends up happening is my now partner, who I had been talking to online, I meet him for the first time that week. He comes to see me for the first time. We had not met in person. It had strictly been an online thing. And this is another moment of like when I met him, when I opened the door, it was like this whoosh. It was like this whole body thing of like, I literally felt like a soul like just ran through me. And I had to I opened the door, and I had to like try and pretend to be normal. Like this thing didn't just run through my body. And I didn't say anything to him. Like I said, I tried to brush it off and try to pretend like I was normal. And we ended up talking, and there was a lot of synchronicity in that. There was some stuff that I had with him also that started to click into place, some synchronicity pieces that as he was talking, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and that makes sense. And I really kind of unloaded a lot of this stuff on him, and he did not look at me like I was crazy, which I really thought he was going to. But I started telling him about all the shit that was going on and what I was experiencing, and he had kind of, I think I had been talking to him a little bit about this on the phone and stuff, and I remember him just always being so supportive. He would like give me money for gas so that I could go out and go hiking, and like I'd never had a relationship like this. Like we weren't together, you know, at this point. It was like we really were just friends, but I could tell from the get-go that he really was interested in taking care of me, or me being okay. And so yeah, I would tell him about all this stuff, and he would add to it. You know, he would give me more information or things that, like, more puzzle pieces that would help me have a greater understanding of some of the synchronicities that I was experiencing. And he ended up staying the night, and I woke up the next morning on July 11th, and I got on my phone first thing when I woke up, and the very first thing I saw was a memory that popped up on Facebook where I had posted about that dream. I did not realize that this happened exactly a year ago, but I had posted on Facebook of like, oh my God, I just had this really weird dream where I got to like ask all my questions and get all my answers and blah, 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 blah. Like I had written it out, and it was exactly 1 year prior to meeting this person in a relationship that was ending. Meanwhile, I was meeting with the council, getting all my questions answered, signing contracts and like all this shit. And exactly a year later is when I meet the person who is my now partner, and have this memory pop up on my feed. And I was like, what the fuck? I showed him, and I was like, that is fucking crazy. Like July 11th, like that is when July 11th, the year prior, is when I had written about having that dream. So that was the very first thing that happened. And then it kind of just fucking raveled from there, of like just one thing after another. And so what ended up happening is that July 11th ended up being the day that I left for this experience that I was about to have. And like I said previously, in the first spiritual awakening, I was given a lot of information about what is essentially like a community that I'm supposed to start, and like the things that we would do for the community, for the world. And like I was getting all these ideas and these things that I was like, oh, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this, and like I had this vision. And so that's another piece that is about to like come into play here. So I had a trip coming up to go to Oregon Country Fair and Darling Reunion, which is a camp out by Oregon Country Fair. This woman has this property, and she like has this big camp out every year for people to come stay for the weekend, and then it's walking distance to go to the fair. And I was going for the first time this upcoming weekend, but I was supposed to leave later, because I believe July 11th was like a Thursday or something, and I think I was supposed to leave, it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. I remember I wasn't supposed to leave that day, but my friend called me and was like, hey, why don't you come up early, and then we can get everything ready, and then we can just get up early in the morning. Yeah, it must have been a Thursday, and I think I was supposed to actually leave on Friday. Well, yeah, my friend called me and she's like, why don't you head up, and then we can just have everything loaded and ready to go, wake up in the morning and like head out. And she lived in Eugene, and Oregon Country Fair is like close to Eugene, but it's still like a little bit of a little bit of a drive, you know, we still gotta go there, you know. And so I left. July 11th is the day that I left, for a moment that completely changed my life. So I went out to meet her, and I was sitting at her house, and I was telling her about this vision of this community and these things that we could implement and the ways that we could do it, and like, and the vision that I had and what it looked like and all this stuff. And she was like, you just need to go to Oregon Country Fair. You just need to go to Darling Reunion, because like that is it's literally what you're describing, it's there, right? And so we went. In the morning we got up, we all met at this like grocery store parking lot, us and like our friends that were all going to this thing, and we all kind of like caravanned, you know, in a little train together to the actual property. And we get there, we get everything set up, and it's amazing. It's you know, everybody picks their campsite, and they all get like so creative with it. There's just all these cool lights and like art installments, and like it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It was just so cool at what everybody did with all their stuff. And everyone was so kind, and like you know, people are like trading and bartering and like making things, and everybody, you know, it's like everyone's just having a great time, and the energy was just something I'd never experienced before. And I really felt like I was on another planet. Like I just feel like for a second in time I got to escape from just like all of the human troubles and what's going on planet Earth, and like it really was like being transported to like a different place. Okay, I'm trying to figure out the order. So I had a moment at some point where I was high, and I had this moment where this thing just hit me of like, oh my god, I'm pregnant. And meanwhile, this fucking band is coming up behind me. It's dark, the lights are on, everyone's having a great time, and this band comes behind me, or someone with a stereo or something comes walking down the path behind me, and that song by Queen, where it's like Mama Ooh, like, starts playing, and I start losing it. I was like, oh my fucking god, I'm pregnant. Like, start panicking because I'm like high, and I literally just slept with my current partner like a day ago. Like, there's no way for me to tell if I'm fucking pregnant. There's no symptoms, there's no nothing, like, but I started panicking because I'm like, I know it, I'm pregnant. And my friend at the time had to like talk me off a fucking ledge because I thought something bad was gonna happen. I like thought I was gonna like miscarriage, or like, because I was high, you know, and it was like, oh my god, I like killed my baby or ruined something, or like, oh my god, what am I gonna do, I'm pregnant, and like, it's the first time I've slept with this person, and like blah blah blah. I like had mental fucking breakdown, and she basically talked me off a ledge and put me to bed, and I went to sleep. And then I spent the rest of the weekend sober because I was convinced that I was pregnant, and I knew it was going to be a girl. What's funny is that I actually bought this crystal while I was there, this little pink quartz crystal, and to this day I feel like this thing just represents like my daughter and my family. And so I was like, it's a girl, I'm pregnant, and it's a girl. And so yeah, I just tried to enjoy the rest of my weekend, and it was still a great time. I would love to go back and experience it again, but I have not been able to go since then. So let's see. At some point, this guy shows up, and I catch him immediately. I'm just hanging out, and I see him. I'm immediately drawn to him, but at the same time, I'm immediately like, I have just like this icky feeling inside, and I'm like, and he's familiar, like, and I could tell I had met him before, but it was like I couldn't place him. But I'm in this like big friend group, you know, and so I'm like, maybe I've seen him at a party at some point. Like, that's totally possible that I've just seen him in passing, and that's why I recognize him. Well, at some point, he introduces himself to me, and I swear to this day, he said, "Hi, my name is Nathan." I swear to fucking God, that's what I heard. "Hi, my name is Nathan." I said, "Hi, you know, great to meet ya." And he was very nice to me. You know, I don't know why I had this icky feeling at the time. I don't know why I have this icky feeling about this person. He seems perfectly fine. He's being very nice to me. Like, there's nothing wrong, right? But then throughout the weekend, everyone is calling him a different name. And I don't know if I should share it because I'm kind of feeling like maybe it's not, yeah. So everyone's calling him a different name, you know, the whole fucking night or whatever. And I'm like, that's weird. Why are they calling him that? I could have sworn he told me that his name was Nathan. Like, and it was a name that like didn't sound anything like Nathan, right? So I'm like, where the fuck did I get this name from? But I eventually let it go, and I was like, okay, I guess this is his name. I don't know where I got Nathan from. I swear that's what he said, but whatever. And I go about the weekend, and we have some interactions here and there, and like every time I'm like sitting next to him or we're talking, it's like literally the whole time in my head is like Nathan, 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 just like on a hamster on a fucking wheel. And I'm like, I kept wanting to call him Nathan, and I'm just like, I don't know what this is, but that's not his name. So yeah, have the weekend, great time. We all go to this like go to have brunch. We all leave, and we all go to have brunch at this restaurant as like this last hurrah, our last meal together before we all part ways. And I'm sitting at the table, and I overhear a couple of my friends talking about how when we all met at the grocery store to drive over together, so we're like in the parking lot, right? And we have to go out of the parking lot and turn left to go down this road. And they were saying that as they were coming out, they almost were hit by a semi because they were trying to like keep up with the group, and he turned when he like probably should have just fucking waited, but he wanted to keep up with us, and so they like pulled out and almost got hit by a semi. And of course, like, I'm in the moment, I clock this because there's the fucking, like, it's like, I don't know, it's just like a car accident thing, you know, again. And it's like I'm overhearing parts of the conversation that for whatever reason are like sticking with me, you know. It's like they're not in and of themselves really anything that means anything, but they just stood out to me at that moment. And so that was one of them. And then I overheard this guy, the Nathan guy, telling another one of my friends that he was going to be heading to Bend the following weekend. And at some point I must have found out that he lives in Portland, which is, I live in Gresham, so we live, you know, in the same area. And I just overheard this, didn't mean anything, whatever. So I went home and I get on Facebook. I don't know if he came up on Facebook. I think he came up as like a suggested friend or something. And his profile picture was one that I recognized because it was from a party. Everyone had this, I believe there was like a giant like penis balloon blow up thing or blow up doll, or like there was some sort of like just like inappropriate like balloon blow up thing. And so I immediately like saw it in the picture and I was like, oh, that's weird. And so I went to his profile and I realized that I had met him a year prior, when I was still in this relationship with this other person. We had gone to a party together in Portland. Mind you, we lived in Eugene, and but I'm like from this area, right? And I think he had friends in this area that invited us to something. So we drove over here and we went to a party, and we're all hanging out, having a good time. And this guy the Nathan guy from Darling Reunion, who I had never met before, comes into the party, and there's clearly like a vibe change. Like, he's noticeable when you come into the party. He immediately starts fucking with the music, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy? He walked in here like he fucking owned the place and starts like messing with the music and shit, and like we were kind of just like, what is going on? He just kind of like took control of the shit, right? So my boyfriend at the time goes up to him and asks him like if he can play like a certain song, and he just laughs in his face like a fucking asshole. Like, it was so rude. And so at the time it was like, wow, okay, like, fuck you then, you know. And so I think that's why I initially had that like gross reaction to him, because even though I hadn't placed it, I hadn't put the two together, it was like my body remembered that, like, oh, that guy was not nice to us. And so yeah, I saw this picture on Facebook and immediately was like, that's the guy. Like, that's where I know him from. That's why I recognize him. Like, how fucking weird, right? So the week is going by. There's still some weird shit going on. My car breaks down, and I'm supposed to go to Bend the following weekend after this. I had another camp out that I was going to. A friend of mine hosts like a glamp out, she calls it, where she has everybody come and like pop their tents up in her backyard, and we all are like a bunch of spiritual ladies and get to have like a great time, like doing little crafty projects and just being with each other, right? And I wanted to go, and my car broke down, and I remembered that I overheard that guy was going to Bend that weekend. So I like hit him up on Facebook and I'm like, hey, I heard that you're going to Bend this weekend. Do you think I could catch a ride with you? And he's like, yeah, I would love that. That would be great to like have somebody to like, you know, ride over with me. So cool, plan is set. I have a ride. The day of that he's supposed to come get me arrives, and so the camp out is actually in Sun River, which is about 20 minutes out from Bend, a little bit further, right? And he's only going to Bend. And my grandparents, mind you, live in that area. That's how, you know, I met people in that area in the first place. So I needed to figure out how to get from where he was going to where I was going. So I called my grandma and I was like, hey, can you pick me up in Bend and take me the rest of the way to this thing? And she was like, oh, well, I don't know, like DJ's here, which DJ is my brother, who is like never, like, I haven't seen him since he was a baby. Like, this is not a normal occurrence. This is a very weird thing for her to say. And mind you, I told you I already had like this weird stuff about a DJ, you know? And so when she said DJ was here, I immediately was like, what? Like, that is the weirdest fucking thing. Like, there's the DJ thing again. And this is not like I said, this is a sibling that I have not seen in many years. Since, like I said, like since he was born, and he was, I don't know how old he was then, but it was many years later, right? So she was like, yeah, I don't know if I can come get you. Well, she did. I don't know how that all worked out, but she did end up coming to get me. So thought that was weird, worked it out. And as I'm like finishing packing up my stuff, the Nathan thing starts rolling around in my brain again. And I literally just like drop my shit out of my suitcase and I like look up at the ceiling and I'm like, what the fuck is going, like, who is Nathan? And it goes, like, you know what I'm talking about, right? This voice comes in, and it's not like an audible voice. Like, it's not something that I'm hearing kind of like how I'm talking to you. It's like kind of like in my brain, but it comes in like very clearly. And it's like, just ask him about it, it's his friend, or it's his friend, just asking about it, something like that. Like, and I'm like, what the fuck? Just ask him about it, like, and then it goes, you'll know when. And I'm just like, okay, great, like, I'll know when, wonderful, like, he's gonna think I'm fucking crazy. So he comes to pick me up, get in the car, we're driving to Bend. And we click pretty good right away. We're talking about stuff, conversations flowing, we're listening to music. Come to find out, he's a DJ, which is why when he came to the party, he immediately started fucking with the music, because that's like his thing. So there's that piece, click together, cool, you're the DJ, got it. Yeah, he's playing good music, we're talking about music, like, great conversation. So there's this moment where we're going around this like windy road. We're getting into like the thick of it, right? Like, we've gone over the mountain. I'm guessing we were probably somewhere near Warm Springs or something like that, or Crooked River Ranch or whatever. And like I said, we're like talking and vibing, and all of a sudden he like puts his hand out like in front of me basically, and is like, shh, you have to be quiet. And I'm like, okay. So like we're just quiet as we're like going around this turn. And then once we get past this area, he goes like, that's like Silent Rock or something like that. And you have to be quiet every time you drive through there, because there were these two kids that like drove over the edge and got in a car accident and they died right there. And immediately the voice is like, ask him. And I like look over at him and I'm like, does the name Nathan mean anything to you? Do you have a friend named Nathan? And I'm fully expecting him to be like, no. And I'm just gonna be like, oh, okay, never mind, you know? But no, he looks at me and he's like, yeah, I had a friend named Nathan, but he died in a car accident. He was hit by a semi. Right? So, yeah, my mind, I was just silent. I remember just sitting there, like, fucking head up against the, like, the window with my, like, my jaw is on the fucking floor. Because, like I said, I fully expected him to be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But no, he validated all of those fucking pieces that I had. The DJ, the car accident, the semi-truck, the name, that it was his friend. I had all of that. And he just validated the whole thing for me. And I was in shock. I was like, what the actual fuck just happened? And so I told him everything that had happened up until this point, and he was like, wow, like, that's fucking crazy, you know? So yeah, it was interesting. My mind was blown. He dropped me off. My grandma picked me up. I went to my camp out, and I'm telling my friend there all about what just happened, because I'm just like in shock, right? This is fucking insane to me. Like, and I'm telling her all about it, and this other lady, her name was Kathy, which is the same name as my grandmother, so it stood out to me. She overheard the conversation, I guess, and she came up to me and she was like, "You have a gift." And I'm just like, well, thank you, but I don't know what the fuck this is. This has never happened to me before. I don't know what's going on. She had a moment with my dog at some throughout this weekend that I was there. It was like they had this like super cuddly moment and I noticed it, right? And didn't think anything of it, because it's like, yeah, my dog is cute and she's like sweet, and yeah. I left the camp out. I went to my grandparents' house for like, I think we were there for like a week or something. Like, he was going to be there longer than the weekend, and I need him to get back home, so I had to stay till he was ready to leave. So I had my camp out with my friends, and then I went to my grandparents' house and I stayed there. Meanwhile, I'm still convinced that I'm fucking pregnant. I keep taking, I'm late. My period's late. I keep taking pregnancy tests. They're coming back negative. I can't figure out what the fuck is going on. I'm freaking out. All this weird shit's happening. I remember when I went to the store one time to get a pregnancy test, there was this little dream catcher like hanging there, and the voice came in my head and was like, "Get it and put it in her room." Her room. So I bought it, and I took a picture of it outside of the store, and I posted it on Instagram for myself, right? And I was like just documenting, you know, it was just there for myself. I said something super vague, basically, like that, of like, oh, just documenting, you know. And I go home, test is negative again. I have this little dream catcher. I even told my partner at the time, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant. I have like no fucking proof of this. And that is also very not like me. Like, I'm not going to tell someone I'm pregnant until I have like a positive test, because I'm not trying to freak nobody out. But I told them everything else up to this point, so like, why the fuck not? So my friend ended up calling me. The one that I had, that was in the dream, that I told all this shit to, you know, she calls me and she tells me she's pregnant. So I'm like, okay, that's super weird, because I thought I was pregnant, or I think I did. I was like, I think I might be pregnant, you know, like I still haven't started my period, my tests keep coming back negative, like that's so weird. And I thought like, well, maybe that was just another thing that wasn't about me, you know. Close to the end of this week, I go back to the friend's house that had the camp out, right? And I'm like, we're just like, you know, visiting, and you know, this is our last little bit of time together before I leave town. And she tells me, she's like, I didn't want to say anything like at the time, but that woman that had come up to you and talked to you and that had the moment with my dog, she had just lost her daughter a few months prior to this visit, and her daughter's name was Ruby, which is my dog's name, Ruby, right? And the whole fucking weekend, I'm over there calling her name every time she wanders off, like, oh, Ruby, Ruby. You know, this poor woman is having to hear me say this name 5 million fucking times. And that would explain why she had such a moment with my dog. And this was on the same day that this Nathan shit just happened. So it was like back to back. It was like I spent that whole day delivering these weird little moments to people about their lost loved ones without even realizing that that's what the fuck I was doing. So yeah, that was all super crazy, right? I chalk it up to like, okay, I guess this all was just for other people. I'm not pregnant. I think at some point I did start my period, and it was like, all right, well, I guess all of this was about other people. I go back home, and at some point, a lot of stuff about like Halloween started coming up. And mind you, we're in July, okay? And so I said something to my partner at the time. I was like, I know this is like super vague, and I don't know what it is, but something, I feel like something is happening around Halloween. Halloween keeps coming up. I don't know what, just something's happening around Halloween. So it's like, all right, well, cool. Well, some time goes by, and Halloween weekend is the weekend that he ends up coming up to visit me. And I did not know this. When I said to him on the phone, I think something's happening around Halloween, it was kind of like, I don't think it was planned until much later. He had to come up here for like a family event thing that was going on. And so it was very like, it was kind of like an official, like, yeah, I don't think it was in the works until maybe a last minute moment or whatever. So he comes to visit me during this time, and we sleep together, and 2 weeks later I find out I'm pregnant. So Halloween was when I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter, which of course I knew that it was going to be a girl, and it was. What's interesting too is that her due date ended up being July 23rd, which I remember when I was pregnant with her, I started to scroll back on my Instagram, and that was the date that I had posted the dream catcher, was July 23rd. So when they told me that was her due date, I was like, what? Like, or no, I didn't click until I had gone to the picture, right? It was July, I didn't think anything of it when they told me, but then when I was scrolling back and I saw that that was the day that I had posted the dream catcher, and I was in there getting my pregnancy test, trying to figure out what the fuck was going on, and the voice had told me to put it in her room, and blah, 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 blah. And I saw that, and I was like, oh my God, that's so fucking weird. Which, she didn't end up being born on July 23rd, but she was born on July 8th. So she still ended up being a little cancer crybaby. But yeah, I thought all of that was fucking insane. And I remember there being like this moment of like, I don't remember where this came from, but I know that there was a moment where it came to me that like, oh, the magic's gonna stop for a little bit, or it's gonna get quiet, or like whatever, because I had this big explosive experience, and like I said, I had this calling, this thing about this community, and I had just gone and done this thing that seemed like what I was looking for and what I was here to do. And so I thought we're taking off, you know. Like, I think even at the time I was before I found out I was pregnant, I was in the process of converting my Subaru into something that I could like sleep in and like do the van life thing. And I thought I was gonna be wild and free, and I was kind of looking into like different types of relationships and open relationships and polyamory, and like this is when all this stuff kind of started to come in. But and that started in my relationship, the majorly abusive one, but I could never get there with him, you know. It was like there were so many trust issues right out the gate that it was like I wanted to explore this, but you really have to have a solid foundation of trust to explore this sort of thing. And so it never got to that point. But in this next relationship with my now partner, you know, this is stuff that I began talking to him about from the get-go, right out the gate, because it was something that I was curious about. So I thought I was about to go live this wild and crazy free life and free love, and I'm gonna build this community, and we're gonna do all this great stuff for the world and bring in the new earth and blah, you know. And then I got pregnant, and so it was like, well, I'm not gonna do van life like this, right? So it really felt like we went a hard left, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened, you know? And at the time, my partner, you know, I wasn't quite sure about him. I was, like I said, I had just gotten out of this majorly abusive relationship. This is the kind of toxic shit I was used to, and he was just so gentle and safe and calm, and like I mistook it for boring, and I was going to not be with him. I was going to just be friends with him, was my plan. And then I quickly found out I was pregnant, and so this was also a very hard time for me, because like I said, I had a vision for my life that I thought I was going to go live, and that is not what happened. And now all of a sudden I'm having this baby with this person who is essentially a stranger. Like, we have been talking for a long time, we have this connection, but the amount of in-person time I have actually spent with this person is like maybe a week, few days. I'd spent 2 weekends with him at this point. So while, yes, I felt like I had enough of a connection to sleep with him, and we had talked about a lot of things, we had shared a lot of things, I was not in a place to like have a baby with this person. We had never been through anything fucking hard, right? I almost didn't go through with it because of that. But like I said, there had been so much synchronicity and all this weird stuff that it was like, I have to follow it. I just have to follow it. Like, I'm fucking terrified. I'm so depressed. I'm scared. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't feel like I'm ready to be a mom. This is not how I saw it going. You know, I thought I was gonna fall in love with someone and get married and like have a baby. Like back to the beginning of the story, I had a vision for myself that was not this, right? I wanted to do things right, you know. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to, you know, do things differently than other people in my family had done them. And it just seemed like every step of the way I was thwarted from having that life. I had also left school again, mind you. I left out that little detail. I did say that it was kind of falling apart, but